Hi everyone, welcome to Leisrealtalk. It's Monday night. Happy Halloween. I thought I was done for the month, and then I realized I'm actually doing the last video for the month. Okay, all right. I have people are still joining. Okay, you know what got me interested is when Xi Jinping gave his speech at the party congress, he his talk was 1 hour and 50 minutes, but the script written was for 3 hours. So the original script was 35,000 words, and there's 16,000 words omitted that he didn't speak. So I was interested in what was omitted from his speech, and then today we'll talk about that. Also today we will talk about we try to understand what's in the head of Xi Jinping, right? What is he up to, and where is he leading China, or um, where is he going? But it's hard to understand what's in the mind of a communist dictator, and even if it's hard to know what's in his head, and even if we do, if we do know, it's hard to understand. But today, I think I found a picture that I think best explains his vision for China, and I think it's very illustrative. So we'll talk about that first. Okay, great. Let me share this. Okay, so let's first talk about uh, where Xi Jinping first went after his past three-party Congress, right? Because that's very indicative of what's in his mind or where he was going. So 10 years ago, at the 18th Party Congress in December 2012, after the 18th Party Congress, he went to Guangdong, the birthplace of China's economic reforms. Notice the guy who stood next to him, to his left, was Wang Yang, who was the party secretary of Guangdong province at the time. And after that party congress, it was December 2012. Yeah, so he got promoted to be the vice premier in March of the following year. So that was like his last few months in Guangdong. And while Xi Jinping was there, he paid tribute to guess who? Deng Xiaoping, right? The founding father of China's economic reforms. So he paid tribute there, and look, the picture on the right was right in front of his Deng Xiaoping's statue. And why did he do that? At the time, he was just elected. I shouldn't say elected. He was just appointed to be the fifth CCP leader. He did not have his team. He did not have his people, so he had to kind of go along with the political platforms that were established by his two predecessors. So that's where he went. Now, 5 years later, this is after this 19th Party Congress. He took his Politburo, his 6 men, to the birthplace of CCP, Shanghai, and visited the site where the CCP held the first Party Congress. And over there, the 7 men repledged their allegiance to the party and their communist ideology. So I was looking at this picture. I found it quite interesting. Like, you would not think that when you join a political party in the West, I mean, I don't think there's any ceremony. I mean, you declare who you are, a Democrat or Republican, or neither, right? But in China, you have to do this swearing, the vow in front of the flag, and then you have to say that you're ready to fight for the party by giving everything, including your life. So if you really think about it, I mean, CCP is definitely not just a political party. I mean, it's playing the role of a religion in China. So those two pictures was just very telling, to tell us what CCP really is. And now this year, this is October 2022. And Xi Jinping took his 6 men to go to Yan'an. This is the place that's very important to Xi Jinping at this point in his reign, because I'll just tell you the compare. I compared what I compared the Yan'an. Yan'an is the place where Mao Zedong stayed for 15 years. Before he seized power in 1949. It is considered the holy land of revolution and the cradle of the Red Revolution. It's in the remote mountains of northwest China. It was the CCP's hideout place after a year-long exodus on foot to escape the Kuomintang, the Kuomintang's army, and Mao stayed there for 15 years. Right. So when Xi Jinping took his 6 people to 6 Politburo Standing Committee members to visit Yan'an, it has several significance. Yan'an at the time, it was right during the Sino-Japan War. And now, we're not talking about a Sino-US war, but we're talking about a Sino-US competition. So the background, the geopolitical backdrop of the two eras are very similar. And also, it was at the time where Mao Zedong established his supreme leadership to be the dictator right after or right at the 7th Party Congress. And now Xi Jinping is trying to be Mao II after the 20th Party Congress. And what Yan'an was famous was its self-reliance program, right? The 991 story where Mao declared 自力更生丰衣足食, right? We're going to be self-sufficient, self-reliant to feed ourselves, to clothe ourselves. So again, it's the relevance is self-reliance 1.0 versus Xi Jinping's self-reliance 2.0. And also, right after the 7th Party Congress in Yan'an, it was a period where the CCP went through a brutal political cleansing. I just saw that up to 10,000 CCP members were persecuted to death. That just tells you the scale of the political cleansing then. So, and everyone is saying that a political cleansing is upcoming. So these are just the similarities between the Yan'an then and then the Xi Jinping's regime now. And that's why he brought his leadership team to there. And he made this shocking comment when he took them to the Red Flag Canal, again, another great leap forward landmark project that was left in disasters. But he made this comment that shocked many people, especially when he said exchanged with human lives. So people were saying, well, what does he mean? Is he expecting the loss of human lives in the upcoming endeavor? So a lot of Chinese China observers are talking about that. I think this slide, this is the picture I want to tell you about. This is what I describe as the Xi Jinping's vision for China. It is actually a plaque displayed at the Yan'an Museum. And it's a quote from Mao Zedong from a speech he gave on February 1st, 1940. And in that speech, he described how great Yan'an was because of the 10 no's. Oh, sorry, I think my logo covered up the text. So the first one says, no corrupt officials. And then number 2 is no riches and bad gentries. And then it goes on, no, all of this, right? So I think these 10 no's are exactly, or what they described, or the Yan'an. It was what Mao's words to describe Yan'an, but this is a picture that Xi Jinping has in his mind for the ideal, quote unquote, ideal China that he wants to see. But the irony is the opposite is true, because the 10, the CCPs, these are the 10 vices of the CCP officials. They're doing exactly the opposite of these, right? So it just shows you such irony that um, he has a vision that's completely the opposite of the reality of the CCP. But anyways, that's what I meant when I say this is Xi Jinping's vision for China. Okay, all right. Now let's talk about his speech, what he omitted from his speech. Um, yeah, his original speech was 35,000 words. It was meant for 3 hours, and he only spoke for, it was actually more, it would be more than 3 hours, but he spoke for 1 hour and 50 minutes. So he omitted 16,000 words from the 35,000 words. And so the question is, what did he omit, and what can we tell? What does that tell us? His omitted words or text. So there's a Taiwanese magazine called Kan, and it got a copy of the original text. The full speech was given out as hard copies to the delegates, so they get to read it. But what he spoke was a abridged version, a shorter version of that. So this Taiwanese media compared the full text to the shortened version that he spoke, and kind of highlighted some of the interesting differences. And I'll go over that with you. So the first thing, okay, so here's the text. So the yellow highlighted text are the are in the full text, but it is or was omitted from his speech. So yeah, so the yellow highlighted are the omitted part. And regarding zero COVID, you see how interesting. Um, he didn't mention uh, the preventing external infiltration and then internal outbreak. And I think that if you read the Chinese, if you can read the Chinese, and if you replace the word COVID or outbreak, if you replace any words that kind of indicates pandemic or public health crisis, and replace them with social stability or national security, it still applies, right? We all know zero COVID is no longer a public health policy; it's a social stability policy. So what's really said here is CCP insists on preventing external infiltration, and at the same time prevent any internal outbreak of social unrest. And these are really the words, I think, in the back of his mind, and he didn't say it. It's in the original full text, but he didn't say it out loud. And then this whole paragraph was omitted in his speech, but it talks specifically about why we believe internal political cleansing are coming. And it has to do with the current state of his officials, right? It has to do with the state of the CCP members. What, 90 million? I don't know. I think the number is overstated. They claim they have 90 million or 80 million members. Many of these CCP members don't bother, and they do things half-heartedly, or just do the minimum to get by. So Xi Jinping is not happy with their perfunctory performances, or performance, and he wants to bring back the fighting spirit from Yan'an. But this paragraph was omitted from his speech. And this whole paragraph was omitted because it talks about the Sino-US competition. And I think it's very interesting that uh, I think I highlighted the words prioritize domestic politics. I think it clearly spells out CCP's strategy. You can read this. It's kind of long, but it details the problems the CCP perceives, um, that's driving the Sino-US competition. I think it's in his speech he wasn't that specific, and I mean, if you look at the second paragraph, it says, China's problem is the lack of development and the lack of balanced development. And also, there are many choke points and bottlenecks in China's push for high quality development. What it meant by high quality development is um, developments that require high tech, like space program, semiconductors, artificial intelligence, all of that. That's what CCP meant by high quality development. Excuse me. But I think what's interesting is it says prioritize domestic politics. If you read the Chinese, I think the meaning comes forth more clearly. I think he's telling his officials that as much as there's just so much, it seems that there's so much going on in terms of Sino-US competition, but his priority is still domestic politics, because he understands, how terrible the Chinese economy is right now, how much resentment people have, how fragile the regime is, and how challenged his power is. So his priority right now is domestic politics. And so I think it's important. And it's consistent with what we have seen, after the Party Congress. I think wasn't the Chinese ambassador to the U.S. And also, I mean, although the minister Wang Yi played, wolf warrior again, but the real message Xi Jinping and his ambassador to the U.S. are really sending a more softer approach, or a softer message to the United States. It's not because it doesn't want to have a face-off with the United States. It is because domestic politics require more of his attention, and he has to focus on domestic politics right now. So I think this paragraph clearly points that out, and it's consistent with what we have seen. Okay, this paragraph I think is very insightful, because we've heard about common prosperity. It was initially raised as a concept, but we never quite understood what it meant, or what is he going to do to push for the policy to be implemented. But here, this is very descriptive. So basically, if I summarize, it's basically, you could read this, but it's basically saying that Beijing is looking to change policies concerning taxes, right, for both corporate tax and individual tax. And also, it's looking to do something to change its social security and welfare programs affecting the fast-growing, or to address the fast-growing aging populations. And also, it's going to deal with the financial responsibility with the local governments. Transfer payments is the term. For those of you who don't know what transfer payments are, it is the money that the central government allocates to local governments. You know how the central government and local government share the tax revenues, but the central government gets a bigger share. So every year, or every quarter, or 6 months, the central government allocates or transfer a portion of its tax revenue to the local government, so to balance their budget. So it's a very important tool the central government has over the local governments. So it's talking about the central government needs to increase the ability to adjust transfer payments. To me, that sounds like, they will have to renegotiate how they're going to split the tax revenue, who controls what. So that's going to change. And it's also making it very clear that the super wealthy people will be wiped out, or their income will be quote unquote adjusted, because it says adjust overly high income. So I think we're not going to see the super rich people in China. And then the very last sentence said it, explain how their wealth will be confiscated, right? It's going to the government will guide and support. To me, it sounds like forcing the wealthy people and businesses to make donations, to do philanthropy, to donate their wealth uh, to causes that the government supports. So it's a very clear blueprint of what the CCP is going to do to carry out the common prosperity um, policy. Yeah, before this point, we did not see anything uh, concrete. So here is it's in the omitted text. All right, let's see what else. Military preparation. Yes, military preparation. So this is basically saying the CCP's focus is going to be on uh, information wars, artificial intelligence wars, and the development of manless, I don't know what you say that in English, I think it's manless weaponry, right? So these are the three areas of focus in its military preparation. Okay. All right. So last page is about Taiwan. It has a lot of words, and you can read this later. But basically, if you read, I didn't translate everything in yellow on the left because there's just too many words. But I kind of translate the highlights and what I think is the most important. Um, Very interestingly, in his speech, he reiterated or he emphasized, he used this, what did he say? He said, absolutely no commitment to renounce the use of force for unification, right? So, but in the full text, he didn't mention the other text, which is about peaceful unification, right? So here it says peaceful unification, one country, two system is still the best way to realize cross-strait unification. It is the most beneficial to the Chinese across the strait and the Chinese nation. Um, so it's a much softer tones here, and also it has these verbiage, kind of talks about the bond, the bond by blood between Taiwanese and Chinese, um, the emotional ties. I mean, it's all in the full script, but it's not in the in his speech. Uh, I think the message that I get from this is strategically, uh, Taiwan issue is his responsibility, and he wants to get that message across clearly. But tactically, he's trying to avoid using force because he knows he will fail miserably. But he does not want to send the wrong message in his speech, so he withdrew all the more practical, the language that indicates a practical approach to the tactic. So he removed that from his speech and just and let the more forceful language come out. So that's, I thought, is a very interesting, and it kind of confirms, our analysis of what he's trying to do. I mean, I'll show you the next. This is a comparison. This is actually the language, the difference in language across three-party Congress, right, from the 20th to the 19th to the 18th. How CCP used when it described, solving the Taiwan issue, and also the language it used regarding military unification. You definitely see an escalated you definitely see an escalation of a military tone he's basically bringing the Taiwan unification as the historical responsibility of the party. So the party has committed to it. So you have to do it. You cannot not do it. And he's making that very clearly, from the strategies perspective. But I think he's very careful tactically, not trying to um, start a war unnecessarily, because he knows um, he knows he could lose miserably, and he also knows his internal political enemies want him to start a war. So, with that said, I wrap up my presentation. I thought it's important because no one is comparing the full speech to the one he gave. And I thought that's missing, and we need to address that. I didn't want to take too much time to talk about it, but I do think it's an important perspective that we need to have in order to have in order to have a clear picture of what the CCP, what the regime or Xi Jinping is up to. Okay, all right. Let me see, what questions did I get. All right, so thank you, Sir Humphrey. All right, let's see. From Richard W. Excellent show. Thank you. Thanks for lay. Thank you, Richard, for your donation. TJ Lewis, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Your support really means a lot to me, because I'm now spending almost 7 days a week on these. I feel like I never leave my desk, because from one live to another, you need time to prepare. But your donation means a lot to me. Thank you. Okay, let me see. Any questions? Okay, here I have a question from Aria. Where'd it go? Lei, what do you think about China's allies' reactions, such as Russia, Iran, North Korea, in the event of war with Taiwan and its allies? I think these, quote, I don't think China has any allies. Even the quote unquote allies are not China's real allies. You think Russia is going to help China in the event of war? I think it will. I don't think. I don't think the CCP has any true allies. But that's a big question for me to answer right now. All I know is I don't think Putin trusts Xi Jinping. I don't think Kim Jong-un trusts Xi Jinping either. You know how communist leaders, they don't have any friends. They don't trust each other. They may appear that they're in the same camp, but that's only for their own interest. All right. Super sticker from Creso Wyland. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, okay, we have a question. I think it's a Russian name. What do you think about Wang Huning's true loyalties? Is he an opportunist or a neo-authoritarian? Wang Huning is a scholar. He rose to his academic excellency, shall we say, at a very young age. He was, I think, the youngest professor at Fudan University. And he was a visiting scholar to the United States for 6 months. And upon returning, he wrote a book, what is it called? America Against America. And he basically concluded that America will fail. His ideology is such that he does not believe in Western-style democracy. During the 6 months he was in the United States, he witnessed, like our presidential debate, how Western politicians tear each other apart, in their election debates, and that appeared unthinkable to to somebody who's always lived in China in a communist society, who has devoted his life to study communist ideologies. To him, that's threatening to the system. He doesn't understand that's the core foundation of Western democracy. The fact that we can criticize our government, the fact that we can have a public debate and disagree and coexist, that's the best part of Western democracy. But to him, that's threatening. So he really believes that the communist ideology is better, is more efficient, because from the centralized perspective, the government can direct how resources are allocated. Basically, it thinks that it's more efficient than wasting time arguing back and forth about what the policy is, rather than wasting time disagreeing with each other. So that's where he's coming from. And then, unfortunately, Xi Jinping agrees with him. The two sees eye to eye on that very idea. So that's why they're able to work together for so long, for the past 10 years, even though Wang Huning clearly is somebody from the Jiang Zemin faction. But because he came from the academic background, he does not have such a strong political, doesn't have such a political undertone with him. And he also is very, he's very careful. He does not, he's from academia, so he's not strong like a politician. And he's very careful not to upset the boss. So he's very smooth. But I think the reason Xi Jinping likes him is because they share the same ideology. And also Wang Huning is very careful not to alienate Xi Jinping. Is he still affiliated with the Jiang faction? I think at this point, probably he's very careful not to appear that way. But in terms of ideology, they're all in the same camp. They're not that different. You think Jiang Zemin, the Jiang faction, is not hardcore left? No, Jiang Zemin upset Deng Xiaoping so much exactly because of his leftist policies. That's exactly why Deng Xiaoping almost got rid of him, but he didn't, because he already got rid of two successors before Jiang Zemin. He didn't want to look like he has no credibility, so he kept him, but he appointed Hu Jintao for Jiang Zemin. The reason was Jiang Zemin turned left. So in terms of ideology, whether it's Jiang Zemin, Wang Huning, and Xi Jinping, they're all the same. And that's why to differentiate which faction Wang Huning really belongs to at this point, I think is a moot point. It's not applicable anymore. They're all the same. Their ultimate goal at this point is to save the regime from falling, and but then there's still the power struggle as far as who want to control the regime, right? Everyone wants to be the boss. So that's why the Jiang faction and then the Xi faction are still fighting. I hope I answered that question. All right. Let me see. Okay. All right. Do I have any questions? From Duan Owens, Lei, I noticed that China COVID restrictions got stricter since Biden came into office. It was not as strict when Trump was there. I think I never realized that, but I think the reason it got stricter now, it wasn't because there are more cases, is because the Chinese society it had so many issues now, economically and financially, politically, and then so the regime has to use zero COVID, the public health policy to control. It's more done for control than public health. So in terms of the actual number of cases, I think even during the Trump administration, the real number of cases in China was much higher than what it announced. So they were just not telling people. Okay. Who is the head of the Jiang faction? Well, Jiang Zemin is what, 98 or 97 years old. It's actually run by his deputy Zheng Qinghong and his son and Jiang's sons. Okay. You have any insight into Chinese yuan collapse? It's losing value. Yeah, it is losing value. And I did a video. Someone we were talking about. I did a video about 2 weeks ago. We talked about the real valuation of yuan versus dollar. Right now, it's what, 7.3, and one scholar, one professor in the United States, believe that yuan is actually worth probably has the same value as Taiwanese dollar. So it should be between. He said he's not surprised if yuan is 20 to 1, 20, 30 to 1. And he thinks it's definitely 10 to 1, 10 yuan to a dollar, because if you look at the price of Apple iPhones, it's like $1,000 iPhone 14 is sold for 10,000 yuan in China. So that's 1 to 10. So it's definitely higher than the 7.3. But whether it's really 20 to 1 or 30 to 1, that I don't know. But that seems to be the belief of some people. Okay. All right. So I won't keep you for long. It's 40 minutes. I think it's good time. I will do another live tomorrow night. I want to talk about Foxconn in China because the situation is unfolding. So I will see you tomorrow. Please like and share my videos. And I really thank you for the donation and for coming to join me. And I'll see you tomorrow. We could do more Q&A tomorrow. Okay? All right. Bye.